Hello lovely viewers, you are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this lesson, we shall be discussing Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. We shall be discussing the summary from chapter 1 to 7. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. At the age of 18, Okonkwo wins fame as the strongest wrestler in the 9 villages and beyond, after throwing Amalinze the Cat, who for 7 years was unbeatable. After this, Okonkwo's fame continues to grow over the next decade as he rose from grass to grace. He has several wives and children. However, Okonkwo lacks patience and is easily provoked into aggression. He often uses his fist whenever he can't get his words out quickly enough. Okonkwo's strength, aggressiveness, and strong will helped him to find success as a young man. Looking beyond Okonkwo's strength, aggressiveness, and strong will lies a lot of negative traits and attributes such as impatience and rashness. Okonkwo's father is Unoka. Unoka died 10 years earlier. He was well known for being a lazy and irresponsible man. He owed all his neighbors money. Unoka was a lover of music. He enjoys playing the flute with the village musicians. He lived a carefree life. Unoka was considered a failure to many, since his wife and children barely had enough to eat. Even though people laughed at him and swore never to lend him more money, Unoka always succeeded in borrowing more money and piling up his debts. Okonkwo's character and behavior contrast sharply to that of his father, Unoka. Unoka lacked a strong will and neglected his masculine responsibilities, such as taking care of his family and trying to amass power or respect. Even though he was a lazy person, Unoka is presented to us as a welcoming person. The narrator tells us of a day when Unoka's neighbor, Okoye, comes to visit him, bringing his goatskin to sit on, and Unoka takes out a kola nut for his guest. Unoka and Okoye argue about who should break the kola nut, and then proceed to talk about health, harvest, and war. The last subject, which is war, makes Unoka uncomfortable because he dislikes war, and so he changes the subject to music. Finally, Okoye comes to the point of his visit. He wants to collect Unoka's debt of 200 cowries. Unoka points to chalk lines on his wall that represent his debts and settles the matter by saying that he will pay his bigger debts first. When Unoka died, he had no titles. He was still heavily in debt and left behind no legacy for his family. Okonkwo is very ashamed of his father, but he worked very hard to win fame for himself as the greatest wrestler in the 9 villages and beyond, and as a wealthy farmer with 3 wives, 2 barns full of yams, and 2 titles. Although he is still young, Okonkwo is already one of the greatest men of his time. As a result of this, he comes to look after Ikemefuna, the doomed boy who is later sacrificed to the village of Umuofia by their neighbors in order to avoid war. Okonkwo is just settling into bed when he hears the ogene of the town crier. The town crier summons all men of Umuofia to the marketplace the next morning for an important meeting. Okonkwo hears an overtone of tragedy in the town crier's voice and wonders what might be the problem. Okonkwo tries to figure out what the meeting might be about and thinks that there might be a war with a neighboring clan. He remembers his own prowess in war, being the first to bring home a human head in the last war. In the morning, the marketplace is full. Umuofia kwenu was bellowed 4 times to the clansmen to attract their attention and silence the talks among the kinsmen. Umuofia kwenu was bellowed the 5th time, before pointing to the direction of Mbiano and describing how the sons of Mbiano have dared to murder a daughter of Umuofia. The crowd then begins to shout in anger. In the end, it was decided that Mbiano will either choose war or offer a young man and a virgin as a compensation for their crime. The neighbors of Umuofia feared it as a powerful clan and try as much as possible to avoid going to war with them. The people of Umuofia, on the other hand, only go to war when their oracle accepts it. Okonkwo was sent to Mbiano as the emissary of war. When he arrived at Mbiano, he is treated with great respect. He returned to Umuofia 2 days later with a 15-year-old boy and a virgin girl. The boy's name is Ikemefuna, and the narrator reveals Ikemefuna's sad story will continue to be told in Umuofia. Okonkwo did not inherit a band from his father, since Unoka had no band to pass on. There is a popular story in Umuofia of how Unoka went to consult the oracle of the hills and the caves to find out why he always had a miserable harvest. As Unoka began to describe the situation to the priestess, she tells him that he had offended neither the gods nor his fathers, but that he was known for being a lazy and weak person. She tells him, "Go home and work like a man," she concluded. Unoka is described as an ill-fated man with a bad chi, or personal god. He died of swelling in his stomach and limbs, which was considered an abomination to the earth goddess. This prevented him from having a proper burial. In the last days of his life, he was carried to the evil forest and left to die. When they carried him away, Unoka took his flute with him. Okonkwo did not inherit a ban, title, or wife from his father, but in spite of these disadvantages and difficulties, he began to sow the seed for a successful future, even during his father's lifetime. He threw himself into work, out of fear of his father's pitiful life and shameful death. Okonkwo worked hard to earn his first yam seed with Nwakibie, a wealthy man in his village. Okonkwo brought him a kola nut and waited until meal and small talk were finished before asking for some yam seed to sow. Nwakibie granted him 800 pieces of yam seeds, a more generous offer than Okonkwo had thought he would receive, and Okonkwo left feeling happy. With his meager harvest, he hoped to feed his mother, 2 sisters, and father, as well as himself. People are struck by Okonkwo's roughness and dealing with less successful men. An old man uses the following proverb to describe him. Looking at a king's mouth, one would think he'd never sucked his mother's breast. A week earlier, a man with no title contradicted Okonkwo at a meeting, and Okonkwo responded that the meeting was for men. Everyone took sides with the other man, and Okonkwo apologized before the meeting continued. Okonkwo struggled against poverty and misfortune in order to earn success at an early age as the greatest wrestler in his village. The narrator asserts to the fact that his success wasn't just luck. At most, one could say that Okonkwo's personal god or chi was good, but the evil proverb says that when a man says yes, his chi also says yes. The clan chooses Okonkwo to carry a message of war to Mbiano unless they agree to give up a young man and a virgin girl to make up for the murder of Udo's wife. The virgin is given to Udo as a wife, and Ikemefuna is placed in Okonkwo's care until the clan can decide what to do with him, which ends up taking 3 years. Ikemefuna is afraid at first, even though Nwoye's mother treats him kindly. When Okonkwo hears that Ikemefuna is refusing to eat, he stands over Ikemefuna with a big stick while he eats. Ikemefuna becomes sick for 3 weeks, but when he recovers, he's no longer afraid or sad. Ikemefuna becomes popular in Okonkwo's household, and he grows very close to Nwoye in particular. Even Okonkwo grows fond of Ikemefuna, though he refuses to show it, since he believes that showing affection is a sign of weakness. However, he lets Ikemefuna accompany him to a big village meeting or ancestral feast, and Ikemefuna calls him father. The Feast of the New Yam, during which Umuofia celebrates the Earth Goddess, and Ani approaches. Everyone in the clan looks forward to the festival, since it heralds a season of plenty harvest, but Okonkwo can never match his enthusiasm for feasting. He prefers working on his farm. His wives and children, however, are excited with the preparations, cleaning, and decorating, and Ikemefuna in particular is excited to experience the feast. Okonkwo gets angry and finds an outlet for his anger, accusing his second wife of killing a banana tree, even though she only cut a few leaves to wrap food. He beats her, leaving her and her daughter weeping. Okonkwo decides to go hunting with a rusty gun, even though he has never killed anything with his gun, which prompts his second wife to murmur about guns that never shoot. Okonkwo hears this and shoots his loaded gun at his wife, who scrabbles away. He misses his target and goes off to hunt. The New Yam Festival is celebrated with joy, with in-laws arriving from different villages on the first day, before heading home after feasting. The second day brings the greatest wrestling match between Okonkwo's village and its neighbors, and Okonkwo's second wife, Ekweli, is excited by the wrestling. Many years ago, she had been the village beauty, and Okonkwo had won her heart by throwing Amalinze the Cat. She was married to someone else before Okonkwo, but Okonkwo was too poor to pay her bride price. But she later ran away to live with Okonkwo a few years later. On the morning of the second day of the festival, Ekweli and her only daughter, Erinma, talk as they prepare fowl to eat. Erinma asks many questions, calling her mother by her first name, and wondering why the pot doesn't burn Ekweli, even though she handles it with bare hands. Nwoye's mother calls and asks Erinma to bring her live coals, which Erinma strokes into a live flame. The drums begin beating to signal the wrestling match has just started, and as Ekweli prepares the meal, she hears Nwoye's sister weeping. Ikemefuna and the first wife's children file with dinner pots, but Nwoye's sister comes empty-handed. She had been showing off to the other children when she broke her pot, but she makes up a sad story to tell her mother. When her brothers are about to tell on her, Ikemefuna silences them with a look. Ikemefuna has spent 3 years in Okonkwo's household, becoming a part of the family. He is especially close to Nwoye, who begins enjoying performing more masculine tasks around the house, pleasing his father. Okonkwo realizes that This is due to Ikemefuna's influence, and he encourages the boy to sit with him in his obi as he tells war stories. Nwoye inwardly prefers his mother's folk tales, but he pretends to disdain women's stories in order to please Okonkwo. The locusts arrive in Umuofia. They come once in a generation, and their arrival is celebrated as a new source of food. They arrive in the cool season after the harvest, as Okonkwo and the boys are working on the outer walls of the compound. They come in small swamp at first, but then they descend and settle in on the wall on the outer surface of the compound. As Okonkwo and the boys are enjoying their feast of locusts, Ogbefu Ezeudu arrives to speak with Okonkwo, informing him that the clan has decided to kill Ikemefuna. Ezeudu advises him not to participate in the killing, since Ikemefuna calls him father. A group of elders arrive at Okonkwo's house early the next morning to discuss Ikemefuna's fate. After they leave, Okonkwo calls Ikemefuna to tell him that he will be taken home the next day. Nwoye bursts into tears upon hearing the news, and Okonkwo beats him heavily. The rest of the household hears the truth, and even Ikemefuna feels that he is not really going home. The next day, the party set out with Ikemefuna and Okonkwo, who disregarded Ezeudu's advice. Ikemefuna is reassured by Okonkwo's presence, feeling that Okonkwo truly is his father. He imagines what it will be like to see his mother and sister again, and worries that his mother might be dead now. As he's thinking, he hears a man behind him clear his throat. When he looks back, the man growls at him to go on, and then he slices Ikemefuna with a machete. Ikemefuna cries for Okonkwo, running towards him, and Okonkwo strikes the killing blow, afraid that others will find him as weak. Thanks for watching this short video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. We will continue with our summaries. See you in our next lesson.